Yes, I am here to tell you that the concept of the free press is very much in danger by Donald Trump right now. And in this breaking story, I'm going to show you not only that, but also what he's doing on a geopolitical global level to try and silence everyone. This is unbelievable because most of us grew up like I did, just presuming and assuming that free press and free speech from the press would always be there, not to mention agencies and entities that you may not even be aware of. But as you will hear in this breaking story, Trump is trying to kill it all. Cooper from CNN just noted what he just did to Voice of America here in this country. Take a quick listen to this before I show you the story. Take a listen.
President Trump has gutted the federally funded media outlet Voice of America and others run by its parent agency like Radio Free Asia and Radio Free Europe. On Saturday, virtually the entire staff of 1,300 were being put on leave. Now some listeners around the world say they only hear music. More now on the history of Voice of America and why it was once considered so important. Kayla Tausche joins us.
When The Voice first went on the air 45 years ago, the announcer said, "The news may be good or bad. We shall tell you the truth."
Chartered by the U.S. to combat misinformation during World War II, Voice of America first broadcast from New York into Nazi Germany in 1942.
Hier spricht eine Stimme aus Amerika.
Long seen as a way to promote America's interests and ideals overseas.
Providing reliable, uncensored information is an important part of our country's diplomacy.
Even today, the U.S. Agency for Global Media says 10 million Ukrainians listen regularly, 10 million in Russia, 2/3 of all Afghans, at least 427 million listeners around the world. And nearly 9 out of 10 weekly listeners say they believe the information is trustworthy. 3 out of 4 say it informs their decisions.
This isn't just a risk to those individuals who will now lose information about their countries, individuals in Russia or Belarus or Cuba. It's a risk to the US national security because it creates an environment in which mis and disinformation, lies and propaganda from autocrats around the world can flourish. And that puts America and American security at risk.
This is unbelievable. This is not even beyond un-American. This is Benedict Arnold treason, traitorship level stuff. On top of that, hell, the director of national intelligence from Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, actually just did this too. And just to add a little context for today, Tulsi Gabbard, who is now the director of national intelligence, has retweeted a post by a far-right commentator who praised the dismantling of Voice of America and other U.S. government-funded news outlets. And neither of those are the breaking story because of Trump's love and obsession with Vladimir Putin. What the U.S. government is trying to do is utilize a way to shut them all down across the world. This breaking story is unbelievable. Take a listen. Breaking news, defying Trump. Several U.S.-funded international broadcasters are still reporting the news. CNN, the leaders of several U.S.-funded international networks have instructed their organizations to continue broadcasting, ignoring a Trump administration order because they believe last weekend's terminations were unlawful, according to a person involved in the matter. The entities, including Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, Radio Free Asia, and Middle East Broadcasting Networks, are continuing to operate around the world while network executives contemplate next steps, including potential legal action. Lisa Curtis, who chairs the board of Radio Free Europe, wrote on LinkedIn that, in quotes, "Our pro bono legal team is prepared to take all necessary steps to ensure that the RFE-RL continues its congressionally authorized mission." Voice of America's website is now frozen in time with old articles like "Forecasters warn of tornadoes in U.S. in coming days" still on the homepage, even though the stories from Saturday are now out of date. VOA employees work directly for the federal government, which is why Trump loyalist Kari Lake, recently named a senior advisor to the agency, was able to take such dramatic action. But most of the agency's other networks are structured as nonprofit organizations that are funded through federal grants, and that distance is making a big difference right now. Lake sent memos to the networks on Saturday telling them that their grants were terminated effective immediately and suggesting that any unused funds must be refunded. As Radio Free Asia noted in one of its stories, in quote, staff at RFA were still working Monday, and the Washington-based news organization has yet to announce how the funding freeze would impact operations. Executives are trying to preserve what little money is left, the person involved in the matter told CNN, while coming up with careful response to Lake's memo. Another question has to do with the separation of powers. Radio Free Europe's story about the dispute on Monday repeatedly referred to its Congress-approved funding. Curtis wrote on LinkedIn that the termination violates the statute that governs Radio Free Europe and violates congressional appropriation laws. A USA GM spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment. In Washington on Monday, State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce called the rapid dismantling of the agency a fluid situation, but there are big safety concerns. People with knowledge of the situation in both Europe and Asia expressed concern that some journalists could be left in harm's way due to the funding freeze. In quotes, if they lose their jobs, that could trigger visa expirations, leaving them essentially in legal limbo, another source told CNN. Without further support in the countries where they're currently located, they face the risk of being stateless, deportation, things like that are all possibilities. A lot of people who are citizens of authoritarian countries are extremely worried because this could leave them very vulnerable and up in the safe haven they had been granted, the source added. Although European countries could create legal routes for most vulnerable journalists, nothing has yet been agreed. In an interview on The Lead with Jake Tapper, Russian-American journalist Alsu Kermasheva said Radio Free Europe provides audiences in Russia, Iran, and other countries with crucial access to information. Without the networks, there will be an empty space in the global media, and Russia and Chinese propaganda will fill in, Kermasheva said. But for the moment, we are still in business, she added, encouraging financial and legal support for the embattled broadcaster. Genuinely and honestly, I would love to have a really big wrap up to this story, but I don't. This is extraordinarily frightening, folks. And so I am sharing with you, I am telling you, I am begging you, in whatever way you can, in your disposition at home, towards your councilmen, towards your senators, your congressmen, whatever it may be, please find a way to voice the absolute disdain you have for the dismantling and destruction of the free media, not just in America, but what we also assist in funding around the world to keep true information flowing. Stay frosty.